Okay, well, everyone, happy Tuesday. Good to be back. I want to start with this first story that Rob is owning today because it has everything to do with the fact that millennials are more cost-burdened renters than renters of generations in the past.
I agree with this.
So I bring this up often just because I think that there is something that is missing a little bit in order for all of us to connect. Our grandparents, our parents, ourselves, and
to close the gap.
Yeah, and even our kids, or even within a big family between the oldest and the youngest, because there is a lot happening cost-wise to the current generation, the millennials, right? And I hate even saying the name millennials because I hate dividing people up, right? Exactly. But you got to pick a beginning and an end to try and figure out what's going on. What we're looking at behind us here is in the Bay Area. It'll start off being a Bay Area story.
Okay.
This is the house. Ooh. The house, single family dwelling. Okay. That is the cheapest in San Francisco right now at $650,000.
Stop. Okay, what's the square feet?
I don't know. That's nothing.
Square feet.
Okay, actually it's $1,000 under. So if you put 650 and under, it'll ding. If you do 651, then this won't even show up.
Wow.
So, and it always starts off as a Bay Area story, right? Because, for the Central Valley and other spots, that's sort of been the relationship. It's kind of always been that way, the big brother or big sister, however you want to call it, of the Bay Area and how that affects places like Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto. It's not just Sacramento.
Right.
And that relationship. But what's interesting about the survey that I saw is that they're focusing on, and we talk about rent, how expensive rent is and homes. So the rent price in Sacramento is going up, in Stockton it's going up. But this is not just a California story.
Okay.
This is a story that is happening all across the country. And then we'll get to the next story, which is the survey, which is the baby boomers, what they spent. If you talk to a financial planner, they'll want to know your income. They know that you probably only have income from a job. You don't have necessarily a huge stock portfolio and all these other things that maybe if you're in an older generation you've been able to build up, and that becomes significant income.
If anything, you have debt upon debt from college that you're trying to pay
exactly.
out.
Right? And so when people are in this spot, when they say, okay, you're renting, well, maybe you're spending how much on rent? Maybe you should try and buy a house. And they try and figure out your what you spend on housing versus what your income is.
Yep.
And traditionally, they want it right around 25%. In other words, of what you make, you're spending 25% on housing, and then you divide up the other stuff, right? Well, now it's inescapable, especially in places like California, but other spots as well, D.C., New York, even places like Atlanta, which is cheaper. It's starting to cross over that 25% mark into 30%, 40%, and they think with the next generation, which is your 22 to 29-year-olds, it'll be approaching 49% of your income is spent not on a home, on
building
rent.
Equity, on rent. Basically throwing money away, right?
Exactly.
To live somewhere.
But what are your options? Exactly. And so, one of the big jokes is that if millennials just spent less money on avocado toast, everything would be fine. They're brunching all day on Sunday. They're buying expensive clothes. They're traveling all the time. There's a lot of assumptions, but what I thought was really interesting about this story is that this is hard data, it's national, and there is an increase in the percentage of what you bring in that is going toward housing, specifically rent. It's one thing if 33 or 40% of what you're bringing in is going toward housing. You can justify that in some odd ways because some of that may be coming back to you as the home prices go up and you're getting equity and all these other things. But that money is just getting burned. It's just going out. You need a place to live, and sometimes you have what I'm saying is,
which is why a lot of millennials live with mom and dad.
There is discretionary income, and I hate using these economic terms because I feel like we're going back to high school economics. Discretionary is whatever's left. You spend it on whatever you want. Some people like clothes. Some people like to go out to eat. Some people like vacation. Tabasco sauce.
$35 Tabasco sauce. Happy 150th
There's certain things you have to spend money on housing.
Yeah, but here's the question: you do not have to take that job that's in that expensive city. That wasn't a question, that was a statement. So that's what I'm wondering. Why do you have to take this expensive job in San Francisco or in tech industry areas? You can go to Austin. It's still getting expensive.
I don't mean to cut you off there, but just so we can get right back on the right track, you are 100% correct. Why not live in a cheaper city? It's proportional. That's the whole key with this story. It is what you're bringing in versus what you're going out. Right. Let's just totally ballpark this, okay? Arbitrary income. Expensive city, you're bringing in $100,000. You're spending $49,000 on rent. Okay, well, let's move to Austin. It's $50,000. Well, now you're spending the same percentage. Now you're spending $24,000 on rent. So it's proportional. It's you can move to a cheaper city, but you're bringing in less income, but you're still spending the same proportion on your housing. So here we go.
What wouldn't make sense is if you lived in a place like San Francisco and didn't make very much and wanted to live in that city. Then you're not making, it's unrealistic. That doesn't make sense.
Exactly. This is percentage-wise is one of these, in statistics, it's one of these gray areas where you can really go off the rails. You know, like if you make $1 per year and then next year you make $2, you increase your income 100%. You're still only making $2. So again, so now millennials, they're up to 45% of their income on rent, and that's the older millennials, 30 to 40. They say projections say 49% for younger millennials.
So Christy said that in their comments too. She said it's definitely more like 50%. This is Christy Tahia.
Okay, so
I just think that's a problem. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. So here's another question. So for the baby booming age, where they're spending what I can't see it, $71,000 or so, that's household income, correct? So say if
most times, not most
they
times,
took individual median income.
Okay, so literally one person, not
individual
family,
median
household.
income.
Okay, so go. Sorry, continue.
I'll say this: before I moved to Sacramento, I was living at home with my parents. I had a great job. I moved to Philadelphia because it would afford me the opportunity to try and break into the TV market, and so I worked a fashion job while I was living at home, and I still developed my reel. It's the ability to live at home that makes being a millennial so great these days, is what I'm thinking. Because there was such a negative connotation about going home. I would say when I was in high school, I thought about my cousins who didn't go out and pursue their dreams the way I thought they should after college. And then I thought about it when I got to college age, and I'm like, you know what? If I want to save the money that I need to eventually have a good retirement plan, be able to afford a family one day, just be able to afford my own life one day, I'm going to have to go back and live with my parents because it's just practical.
Okay, that's your situation.
Bless you.
Millions of people do not have that option. Once they're out of the house, they are out of the house.
Yeah,
and maybe taking care of mom and dad.
Right, because their parents are struggling themselves. Correct. They may have to the recession was a great eye-opening moment for a lot of people. A lot of families that had the room, everything was fine, they had to downsize their homes because they might have got it foreclosed on. And so now they don't have that bedroom for their adult children to move back into the home to save money. They would maybe want them to do that, but some of them don't have that ability.
See, I'll say this. I have a family friend who, they had a family of 5 growing up in a 1-bedroom house, and they are one of the closest families I've ever met. Nobody was ever told they couldn't come back to the house. Nothing like that. They slept wherever they could find a spot. And that's family. You figure it out. It's easier to pay bills when you have more people in the house than it is when you have less, regardless if you downsize.
All of that is great. I have another friend whose parents passed away, both of them. They aren't able to go home. There just physically is nowhere to go. So everyone has a different situation. Ideally, yes, you have family who has open arms like that and then can come and afford you the opportunity to stay at home. That's great. Other generations will say, gosh, you're just basically giving them a crutch. And at what point you're going to say, no, you need to spread your wings and fly and go try. You need to figure life out. Go figure it out.
But so that's speaking towards the people who are struggling, the millennials. That's just looking at it from the vantage point that the millennial is struggling. But if the family is struggling, that millennial can come home to help out their family. And I think we're forgetting about that picture and why people aren't doing more of that.
Yeah, I think there are so many different sides of this. Then you have a guy named, a woman named Vicki Rose who said, I make a fixed $700 a month, was forced to sell home, live in a motorhome, pay $400 in rent. So brings in $700, pays $400 for rent. That's California, not a lot of jobs for 62-year-olds. So this is speaking for outside of the millennial generation, but that's just to give us a scope of someone trying to make it out there. Very true. My son and daughter-in-law are lawyers and corporate accountants. They make a lot of money, but they live in San Francisco and pay astronomical rent for an over 100-year apartment. They even have to pay a high fee for a slot in a garage across the street from the apartment. Yes.
Right. And So to point this out, this is what caught my attention. Mike Rosenberg is one of the elite reporters in the country. He was in the Bay Area forever, and then he's moved up to Seattle, where whatever happened in the Bay Area is now happening in San Francisco. Okay. Same thing. The numbers are different, but the same phenomenon. And the percentage of rent in their 20s, that's key too. It's not baby boomers now spending for income, for renting now. It's when they were in their 20s. 36% went to rent, 41% for Gen Xers, and 45% for millennials, and it alludes to, again, getting to that magic 50% mark. The problem is that this reality hurts the country in so many ways. Number one, they're not paying down their student loans as quickly as possible. They're delaying having children, and if they really want to have children, why shouldn't they be able to have children? They're delaying that. They're delaying getting into long-term relationships, and some people want that, but they just want to be so focused. The debt is just overwhelming. There's no way out of it, and it's a tough spot because the more money you're spending on rent, then the less discretionary income that you have to spend at going out to eat, buying odds and ends, traveling, which that money then goes to all these other avenues of the economy, which if you've got a corner store, let's say you have a corner store surrounded by apartments, their money, it would go to your store, but they're saving money on rent. Now, there's other things that have happened lately that I think are different that you have to factor in, because it's not one statistic that just basically explains everything. I would assume, I don't have any data for this, but many younger people, because of rent is so expensive, maybe they're finding living closer is worth it because they don't have a car.
Right.
So we've seen that in early places where rent has always been high, like in New York or in Chicago or even LA these days. Well, I can afford the rent. Proportionally, it's not good, but because I don't have a car, I can justify it.
Right.
Or, there's light rail. They didn't have light rail to the degree that we have it now in metro areas.
Yes.
To the degree. Yes, of course, there was light rail in LA and all these other spots. But I just think it's such a big story that's in the background that's affecting all of us, and that we should just be more aware of it. That's all.
And it's easy to say, oh, millennials, why can't they just figure it out like we did, says Gen X, says baby boomers, when you're looking at the percentage and you're talking about we are in a different time where 49, let's just call it what it is, half of our income is going toward rent. Very different. Thank you for popping this back up, producers, because baby boomers, yes, 36%, Gen X, 41. So steadily going up. I worry about Gen Z. The generation after, the ones that are coming up through high school right now.
This all stems back to issues with, in my opinion, voting, how we vote people into government, the infrastructure that we have in this country for creating opportunities for millennials to be able to make money, not live in debt right out of college. If we had more affordable education so that they wouldn't go into debt immediately, we might not be seeing this problem.
And I would say
that's part of it.
I would say you have a strong point to this degree that you see a lot of the current legislation now. They're trying to use that power to try and address some of these issues. No one wants this overbearing trying to basically decide the winners and losers, but they're trying to look at things like community college being cheaper or free for a year or two than working. So they're trying to address some of the affordability issues because I think they realize as a whole,
but who are making those
changes? It can be a drag. Yeah,
we have millennials that are my age, that are a little bit older than me, that are finally able to play their role in politics and get some of this legislation passed by getting into city councils, by getting those small spots in government. That's how these changes are going to be made. It's by the people that are affected by these increases in housing, by the not so great increases in wage. When you're affected by it, you're more likely to change
when
it.
you can identify with the issue, all of a sudden it becomes your issue.
Exactly. It is their issue. It is our issue.
Okay, we have a lot of people weighing in.
Yeah.
A lot of comments.
Shall we get to the comments?
Well, Terry Robinson.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh.
I see 3 hand gestures. Go ahead.
I was going to switch topics altogether.
Oh, got it. Well, we just want to say thank you to a lot of...
Terry says, I always told my kids to stay at home as long as they want because mom and dad won't be around forever to help them. So they're encouraging it. And then Henry says, I have a kid who's 35 and another one who's 25. They still live with us. They both contribute every month. So they're also helping with those bills that you were talking about.
And that can be
And then
really helpful.
Debbie says, they stay at home because they were never prepared by their parents. So that's a whole nother issue where you're saying parents need to get these kids ready to go. And maybe some of these kids are ready to go, but they're not getting a job that's making enough money. So maybe they do have a good job, but they're not.
Or maybe they want a lifestyle that they lived when they were with their parents and they can't afford that exact lifestyle on their, I don't know, whatever they're making. And so they figure out a way to make that happen. That's certainly what I did.
I just leave it to each family their own, right? Who are we to judge? I mean, if parents want this to happen for their kids and they have extra space or they need extra help, that's their situation. That's their experience. It's easy to sit here and be like, well, if I had kids or if my kid would try to do this, I'd kick them out. It's not necessarily true because you're not in that family's position. But we do welcome and thank all the comments coming in. And to the person who said they were in surgery and they haven't been here with us for a while, but they are here now.
Hey, Carlos.
Welcome back. Is that Carlos? Yes. Thank you for catching that comment.
Nice coming back.
Nice coming back.
I love that.
Shall we switch the topic now?
We shall.
Okay.
And this one.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more stories just like this one, all you got to do is hit subscribe.